Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Saidu. Our top focus on the show, US President Donald Trump has said that he has spoken with the Russian president about ending Russia's war on Ukraine. This comes as Zelensky has expressed his readiness for talks with Putin. The question we ask on the show today, is Zelensky crawling towards survival after Trump-Putin talks? Also on the show, French President Emmanuel Macron will be hosting the AI Action Summit in Paris. And ahead of that, the French president has deepfaked himself to promote the AI summit. We'll get you details about that story. Finally, we will tell you about China's silent spy infiltration into Taiwan's armed forces. All that and a lot more lined up on the show. Let's get you started. Our top focus on the show. It's game over for Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. And this comes following discussions between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin regarding Ukraine's future. What's pertinent to note here is that the discussions happened completely sidelining the Ukrainian leader. And Zelensky is now fighting for survival. He has asserted his proposal to supply allies with Ukraine's rare earth minerals, saying, let's do a deal. This comes as Trump has reportedly spoken with Putin and has been pushing for a rapid end to the war. However, Zelensky's proposal comes with conditions: support for Ukraine's war efforts.
These deposits are priceless. It is huge amounts of money. Huge. That is why we need to protect it. So if we are talking about a deal, that's what the Americans want. Then let's do a deal. We are only for it. Let's do the deal.
Ukraine first introduced the idea of opening its critical minerals to investment last autumn. At that time, Zelensky has proposed a victory plan. It had two goals. Number one, strengthening Ukraine's position in negotiations. And number two, compelling Russia to engage in talks. Now, Zelensky says that less than 20% of Ukraine's mineral resources, including about half of its rare earth deposits, are under Russian occupation. Remember, rare earth elements are crucial for manufacturing high-performance magnetite, electric motors, and consumer electronics. Zelensky warned that if not stopped, Russia might share these resources with North Korea and Iran, both of which are sworn enemies of the United States of America. Well, his pitch is clear: stop Putin and protect what we have, specifically referring to the mineral-rich Dnipro region in central Ukraine. He said that Ukraine has Europe's largest reserves of titanium, essential for the aviation and space industries. Ukraine also has uranium, which is used for nuclear energy and weaponry. Many titanium deposits are located in northwestern Ukraine, away from the fighting. Still, for Ukraine, the threat is immediate. Russian troops have been gaining ground in the east for months, pouring enormous resources into an unrelenting fighting on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Kyiv's much smaller army is struggling at this point of time. It faces a shortage of soldiers, and is now seriously concerned about where weapons supplies will come from in future. No surprises then. In recent days, Ukraine has swiftly adjusted its foreign policy approach. It is adopting a more transactional approach. How much of this shift has been inspired by Trump? Well, that remains to be seen at this point of time. Still, Zelensky has said that Kyiv is not proposing to give away its resources, but is instead offering a mutually beneficial partnership. He has said that Russia is well aware of the location of Ukraine's mineral deposits due to Soviet-era surveys, documents which were returned to Moscow when Kyiv gained independence in 1991. Zelensky's statement also comes just days before the Munich Security Conference, where officials from various Western nations will gather, and during a very critical point in the ongoing nearly 3-year-long war, Zelensky has indicated that he intends to participate in the conference, where Trump's special envoy for Russia and Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, is also expected to attend the summit. Zelensky has stressed on the importance of meeting Trump in person, and that is before Trump meets Putin. He said, and I'm quoting him here, otherwise it will appear as though there is a dialogue about Ukraine that does not include Ukraine, unquote. But it looks like the talks have been going on between Trump and Putin for quite some time without Zelensky. On Sunday, Trump said that the US was making progress in its talks to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, Trump indicated that the two men had been in contact and that would mark the first officially acknowledged conversation between Putin and Trump since early 2022.
Well, they can assume that. It makes sense. Well, I don't want to talk about it. And if we are talking, I don't want to tell you about the conversation. It's too early. But I do believe we're making progress. We want to stop the Ukraine-Russia war. And I want to stop it just because I hate to see all these young people being killed. The soldiers are being killed by the hundreds of thousands.
Trump's effort for peace comes at a time as advancing Russian troops are posing a threat to the major Ukrainian logistics center in Pokrovsk. Well, on Sunday, Russia said that its forces had taken control of one more settlement in Donetsk region. Intense fighting was also reported in Kharkiv, Avdiivka, Donetsk, Zaporizhia and Kherson. On the same day, Ukraine's General Staff of the Armed Forces claimed that 64 battles were reported in the frontline areas. The Russian Air Defense Forces said they shot down 90 Ukrainian drones and intercepted a US-made HIMARS rocket overnight. Well, no wonder then the Ukrainian president is slowly, if not surely, yielding to allies' demand for survival. Our next story is about the Artificial Intelligence Summit in France. But before we go any further, take a look at this. What do you see? A dancer grooving to a retro 1980s hit? Or how about a French rapper? Now, take another guess. Who do you think this is? A suave spy? Well, I'm sure you can recognize this at least. No? Just in case you did not know, this is none other than the French President Emmanuel Macron himself, or at least a deepfake version of him. Yes, the French President just pulled off one of the most unique PR stunts in recent memory. In a montage of deep AI-curated videos, Macron transformed into a series of characters, dancing, rapping, and even giving beauty tutorials, all to grab the world's attention. And it seems to have worked. His video has more than 213,000 likes. But Macron was not just having fun. This was all a part of his campaign to put the spotlight on AI, on artificial intelligence, and more specifically, the AI Action Summit happening in Paris. Now, behind the humor lies a serious message. This AI summit is not just another high-profile gathering. It is reportedly a major moment for global leaders, tech giants and AI pioneers to discuss the future of AI and also how it's evolving, how it's being regulated, and how to take uniform decisions on such issues. And India is co-chairing the event, showing its growing influence in the AI landscape. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is scheduled to arrive in Paris later today. And big names from the tech industry along with political heavyweights are also in attendance. Even China's President Xi Jinping has sent a special envoy. Perhaps a clear sign that AI is no longer just a tech issue, but a geopolitical one. US Vice President J.D. Vance is also attending the summit, marking his first international trip since US President Donald Trump's election victory. The question now is, will this summit bring AI cooperation or fuel new adversaries? Well, that's the billion-dollar question. And before it, Macron's special envoy for the summit in her opening remarks called for a global AI strategy that does not leave countries behind. Take a listen.
This summit is a moment of true global openness to the world. Many countries still fear that their only choice is to be customers in the development of AI, that they're not able to develop their own solutions. Researchers and innovators, on the other hand, who are the ones who are driving these advances, are too often sidelined in global conversations. This must change, and today marks a turning point.
Before further made it clear that the summit is about real-world AI applications, from medical breakthroughs to advanced automation, adding that AI is already shaping our lives in ways we can barely keep up with. Macron, meanwhile, said that private sector investments in France will total around 109 billion euros, which is approximately $112 billion in AI sector. So, Macron's deepfake stunt may have grabbed attention, but the real story here is much bigger. AI is rewriting the rules of power, politics, and progress. The question is, who is really in control? And how do countries make sure this technology works for everyone and not just a select few? We now shift our attention to China's silent spy infiltration into Taiwan's armed forces. And this is not just about espionage. It is a systematic effort by China to weaken Taiwan from within. Let's first start with retired Taiwanese General Cao An-Kao. In 2021, Cao made a video dressed in camouflage, urging Taiwan's military to overthrow its government. He reportedly called the ruling Democratic Progressive Party a group of ethnic traitors and accused them of selling out to the US. At that time, many dismissed him as an aging hardliner with no influence. But fast forward to today. Cao faces serious charges of military espionage. Prosecutors say that he was not just speaking out. It turns out he was actively working with China, forming an armed group to support a Chinese invasion. His network used drones to monitor military drills, sent training reports to Chinese officials, and even sought to recruit more insiders. And this is not an isolated incident. Just last month, another group of former officers were accused of leaking intelligence, such as maps and photos of American diplomatic sites and military bases to Chinese operatives. And the numbers show that such cases are becoming common in Taiwan. Last year alone, Taiwan prosecuted 64 people for spying for Beijing. A vast majority Two-thirds were either serving or retired military personnel. As per reports, espionage cases in Taiwan have quadrupled over the past 4 years. According to reports, between January 2022 and June 2024, Beijing attempted to recruit Taiwanese officers and soldiers online, and that's over 1,700 times, reaching them through online gaming platforms or social media. Well, according to reports, some recruited soldiers have recorded surrender videos. In these clips, the soldiers wear Taiwanese military uniforms, stand next to Chinese flags, and pledge not to fight in a war. Others have reportedly pledged loyalty to China, effectively agreeing to switch sides if conflict erupts. As per reports, these videos have not surfaced publicly yet, but experts believe that China is stockpiling them, waiting for the right moment to use them in an information war, convincing the Taiwanese public that their own military is not loyal. So how does China convince Taiwan soldiers and officers to betray their own country? According to reports, Beijing focused on retired officers, particularly those with nationalist leanings. Many of them have fled mainland China generations ago and opposed Taiwan's independence. While Chinese agents reportedly played on this resentment, befriending them during family visits or business trips, then slowly gaining their trust through meals and games of golf. But now, China is shifting its focus to younger targets. A top Taiwanese prosecutor handling national security cases told The Economist that many of these recruits are deeply in debt. Some turn to online gambling. Others seek loans from informal lenders, many of whom have links to Taiwan's organized crime networks and religious temple groups. So these middlemen act as mediators for Chinese intelligence, offering quick cash for seemingly harmless favors. Well, according to reports, it all starts with small amount. A soldier might get paid $6,000 just to take a picture of a bathroom inside a military base or record a simple anti-war message. But once they take that first payment, they take that first step, the pressure then escalates. Agents demand more, such as maps, deployment details, or classified documents. And within a short time, they get trapped in the bait. Recruits are reportedly told that Beijing already knows everything about their movements and deployment orders. Agents are then given an offer that war is coming, and if they cooperate, their families will be safe. Some soldiers get terrified and they agree. One recent case involved a Taiwanese lieutenant who made a deal with China in exchange for Thai passports for his family on the condition that if a war between China and Taiwan breaks, he would stay and serve, but his wife and children would flee immediately. Now, Taiwan is trying to fight this back. Taiwanese officials reportedly credit internal reporting for uncovering most espionage cases. According to Taiwan's defense ministry, it is a sign that counterintelligence training is making a difference. Courts are also issuing harsher penalties, hoping to deter future traitors. But according to reports, China is using these very cases as propaganda, deepening Taiwan's internal divisions. Like we told you earlier, this is not just espionage. It's a full-scale infiltration designed to weaken Taiwan's military from within. As China intensifies its efforts, Taiwan faces a challenge, not just from the outside, but also from within. Well, let's also tell you what else is lined up for you on Gravitas today. In a short while from now, we will tell you about a landmark survey in the UK concerning Gen Z and what they think about their country. We'll also tell you about Iran's top military officials, and they are now calling for the abolition of a fatwa banning the creation of nuclear weapons. And finally, we will tell you about Bangladesh's Operation Devil Hunt, how Dhaka is hunting Sheikh Hasina's loyalists. Moving on to the United Kingdom, research conducted for UK's daily newspaper, The Times, has revealed that nearly half of Gen Z, those aged between 18 to 27, view Britain as a racist country. More importantly, it also reveals that only 1 in 10 would be willing to risk their lives defending the nation in war. This study, conducted in collaboration with YouGov and Public First, it found that only 41% of young Britishers say that they feel proud of the country, a major drop from 80% in 2004. Furthermore, only 15% believe that UK remains a united nation, compared to nearly 60% 2 decades ago. Half of the surveyed young adults believe that UK is stuck in the past, while nearly half also view the country as inherently racist. Meanwhile, the idea of fighting for Britain appears almost unimaginable to most of them. Just 11% say they would take up arms if the country was under threat, while around 41% claim that they would refuse to fight under any circumstances. Senior UK military and other leaders are calling the findings of the study a wake-up call, as this could have dire consequences for UK's future security. General Patrick Sanders, former head of the UK Army, said that if UK is not willing to defend its freedom, it risks becoming vulnerable in a world filled with threats. Meanwhile, Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, expressed deep concern over the findings, saying that too many young people feel disconnected from the nation's future. But the question right now is, why do young UK adults feel so disillusioned? Experts and lawmakers believe the answer lies in economic struggles and cultural divides, pointing out that Gen Z has faced wage stagnation and greater financial hardships than other generations. Meanwhile, cultural debates such as Brexit and gender issues are further fueling dissatisfaction among Gen Z. And this crisis is not just a social issue. It could have implications for UK's security and military readiness. According to internal calculations from the UK's Ministry of Defence, the country needs to increase its defence budget to 3.6% of GDP. And that is a staggering 56% increase to modernise its military, maintain its nuclear deterrent, and also meet NATO obligations. But according to reports, with the UK's finances already stretched thin, meeting this target appears impossible. The situation only gets worse. Last year, the Deputy Chief of Defence Staff admitted that Britain could not sustain a major war for more than 2 months. And that is due to severe shortages in ammunition and military resources. His remarks echoed the findings of a Commons Defence Committee inquiry, which concluded that the UK's armed forces are not prepared for a potential war, especially without urgent reforms to fix the military's recruitment crisis. So UK today faces a dual crisis. On one hand, an entire generation is turning away from national pride and the idea of defending the country. On the other, UK's military is severely underfunded and ill-equipped to handle future threats. If this trend continues, UK could find itself vulnerable, not just to external adversaries, but also internally. Shifting our focus to Iran, where military leaders are urging the supreme leader to revoke the nuclear fatwa. Well, you heard that right. Senior commanders of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, otherwise known as IRGC, have urged Ayatollah Ali Khamenei to lift his long-standing fatwa that bans the creation and use of nuclear weapons. Well, according to reports, the Iranian commanders argue that nuclear weapons are essential for the country's survival, and that is amid mounting pressures from Western adversaries. Just a quick background here. Ayatollah Khamenei's fatwa was issued in the mid-1990s. It was publicly announced in 2003, and it forbids the manufacturing, stockpiling and use of nuclear weapons, deeming them contrary to Islamic principles. This decree has been a cornerstone of Iran's official stance on nuclear armament. However, recent escalations in regional tensions, including Israeli airstrikes on Iranian military sites near Tehran, they have reportedly intensified internal debates in Tehran about national defense strategies. The attacks, which targeted sites associated with Iran's missile sites and nuclear research facilities, have highlighted vulnerabilities in Iran's defense infrastructure. It is because of this that Iranian military leaders are worried. They have reportedly expressed concerns that following the country's long-running nuclear fatwa, it may leave Iran not prepared enough in a bid to counter existential threats. The IRGC leaders may also have expressed that acquiring nuclear weapons would serve as a powerful deterrent, and that's against Iran's enemies. Remember, ties between Iran and Western nations have been severely strained ever since the collapse of the nuclear deal in 2018. That was when the US withdrew from the deal. That move was followed by US-led economic sanctions on Iran, which only increased diplomatic isolation of Iran. Still, despite these Western sanctions, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has consistently dismissed the prospect of negotiations with the US, calling such talks unwise and dishonorable. Khamenei's steadfast opposition to nuclear weapons is rooted in both religious doctrine as well as strategic calculation aimed at preventing further global isolation. Now, experts say that if Khamenei were to reconsider the nuclear fatwa, it would be a major shift in Iran's defense policy. It could also lead to accelerated nuclear development within the Islamic Republic, and such a move would likely exacerbate tensions with Israel and US. As for Khamenei, what he decides remains to be seen. Shifting our focus to Bangladesh, where a state-sponsored witch hunt targeting former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's party is currently going on. As a part of this new initiative, Bangladeshi security forces have arrested as many as 1,300 people across the country. Well, the name of this operation is literally called Operation Devil Hunt. It was launched by interim government head Mohammad Yunus over the weekend. And that's after student activists were injured in Ghazipur during vandalism at the home of a former Awami League minister. The operation is officially aimed at curbing nationwide incidents of mob attacks and vandalism. It involves collaboration between the army, police, and specialized units. Sure, the objective of the operation seems commendable, but there's a small problem. The majority of those arrested under this special operation are members of the Awami League and its affiliated organizations. The Awami League, as you may recall, is the party of Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh's ousted Prime Minister. It is also a party that played a big role in the country's independence from Pakistani forces. So what is this operation appears to be in reality is a political witch hunt. Don't believe us? The facts on the ground will tell you a better picture. In Ghazipur, 81 leaders and activists from the Awami League and its affiliates were arrested. Then, in Kamela, 3 individuals associated with Sheikh Hasina's party were taken into custody. In Hataya Upazila, 7 Awami leaders, including a Union Parishad chairman, were detained during different operations in various areas. The government has released a statement regarding Operation Devil Hunt, which began after gangs associated with Hasina attacked a group of students, leaving them severely injured. The Home Advisor said that the operation will continue until all so-called devils are brought to justice. He said, and I'm quoting him here, "Not a single devil should be left out." He spoke about the operation as specifically targeting individuals who attempt to destabilize the country and are violating the law as anarchists. On Sunday, Senior Secretary of the Home Ministry asserted that the operation will persist for as long as required. He said, and I'm quoting again, "Our target is to neutralize the pockets from which attempts are being made to destabilize the country," unquote. As a part of the operation, a command center has been set up at the police headquarters under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Here, representatives from various forces are reportedly monitoring the country's law and order situation. Now, this whole operation follows several days of unrest in Bangladesh. Remember, last week, on the 6th-month anniversary of Sheikh Hasina's ouster, demonstrators torched and bulldozed buildings linked to a family. The demonstrations were triggered by reports that Sheikh Hasina, who has defied an arrest warrant in Bangladesh, would do a Facebook broadcast from exile. Among the buildings destroyed were the museum and former home of Hasina's late father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who is also Bangladesh's first president. If you ask the Yunus-led interim government, they blame Hasina for instigating the violence. Last Friday, Yunus called for calm, asking demonstrators to respect the rule of law. US President Donald Trump's announcement on 25% tariffs on steel imports starting Monday has kicked up a storm. The European Union, China and other key trade partners have vowed to hit back. While poll numbers show Trump has got a thumbs up on immigration-related issues, but it's a mixed bag on the tariffs front. Here's more.
Every country will be reciprocal, that's right. Every country. It won't affect everybody because there's somewhere we have similar tariffs. But the ones that are taking advantage of the United States, we're going to have it's reciprocity, it's reciprocal. We're going to have a reciprocal tariff. But we'll have a news conference Tuesday or Wednesday.
Tomorrow?
Monday, yeah, tomorrow.
What countries will those go on?
Everybody. Steel.
Including Canada and Mexico?
Yeah. Any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum, too.
10%?
25%.
25 for aluminum as well?
25 for both.
The move echoes protectionist measures Trump had taken during his previous term in office. He calls it a bid to shield US industry from unfair foreign competition. Ahead of the move kicking in, there's been a strong pushback. Europe, Canada, China have all hit out. The European Commission promised it would react to protect Europe's interests. China, that is already engaged in a trade dispute with Washington, has warned it would hit back. Canada, the largest supplier of steel and aluminium to the US, is likely to feel the heat, as are Brazil, Mexico and South Korea. Trump has also pledged reciprocal tariffs on countries charging higher levies on American goods. More details are expected on Tuesday or Wednesday. Trump using tariffs as diplomatic leverage for negotiations is not ruled out either. China has called the situation a lose-lose for all sides.
I want to stress that there is no way out of protectionism, and there is no winner in a trade war and tariff war.
20 days since he returned to the White House, Trump's actions have allies as well as competitors shaken. A YouGov poll says most describe him as tough, energetic, focused and effective on issues like deporting illegal immigrants. But on the trade wars, except for the heat on China, a majority of Americans do not support his tariff plans. It's a close 44% to 56% on Mexico, according to the poll, but on Europe with 40% support and on Canada with 38% support. Polls suggest he's pushing the pedal too hard. There's said to be rising concern among the American public that new tariffs on imported goods would lead to price increases. Early days yet, but will these findings get Trump to recalibrate? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Moving on. The universe whispers secrets in numbers so vast that they defy comprehension. But even in the realm of astronomy, some figures stand out as truly colossal. Watch our next story and be prepared to be dwarfed by the sheer scale of the biggest object in our universe.
The universe is huge. It's so vast that even the biggest things we know are just tiny dots in the grand scheme of things. For example, our sun. It's over 1 million times the size of the Earth. Yet, in our Milky Way galaxy alone, there are hundreds of billions of stars, many much larger. But even our galaxy is small compared to some of the biggest structures out there. Clearly, the boundaries keep expanding. But now astronomers have discovered something even more astonishing: Quipu, the largest known structure in the universe. It's a superstructure, a mind-blowing cluster of galaxies and matter stretching over 1.3 billion light years. If you traveled at the speed of light, it would still take you more than 1 billion years to cross it. According to a research published in the journal Astronomy and Astrophysics, Quipu isn't just enormous, it also is incredibly heavy, with a mass 200 quadrillion times that of our Sun. The ramifications of Quipu's discovery are profound. These superstructures, including 4 other similarly massive formations, identified by the same team, are believed to hold nearly half of the galaxy's clusters, 30% of all galaxies, and a quarter of the universe's total matter. Moreover, they're altering the wavelengths of radiation passing through from deep space, offering us a unique opportunity to refine our models of cosmology. This discovery is a game changer. Studying Quipu will help scientists understand how galaxies form, how the universe is structured, and how it has evolved over 1 billion years. This is one of the biggest finds in astronomy, and it may just be the key to unlocking the deepest secrets of the cosmos. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
In the bustling corridors of Earth's atmosphere, an invisible menace looms. Thousands of metal fragments, they are hurtling towards our planet at terrifying speeds. Our next story explains how it's not just astronauts but planes that are facing an unprecedented challenge as space and sky traffic converge.
Above our heads, a deadly game unfolds. Our quest for space dominance has littered Earth's orbit with an arsenal of metallic missiles, each potentially fatal. Every flight now plays an invisible game of chance with fragments of humanity's space ambitions. Over the past 6 decades, more than 6,740 rockets have been launched into space, generating over 56,000 pieces of orbital debris. While many objects burn up in the atmosphere, a significant number survive re-entry, with some falling unpredictably into airspace used by commercial flights. A study published in the Nature journal highlights the probability of a strike is low, the consequences could be catastrophic. Thousands of potential threats are lurking in the dark. While no aircraft has been hit by falling space debris yet, experts warn that even a tiny fragment could be catastrophic. A single gram of metal traveling at high speeds could puncture an aircraft's fuselage, damage an engine, or shatter a cockpit windshield. As more debris rains down, airspace closures could become frequent, leading to flight delays, diversions, and safety risks for passengers. One alarming example occurred in 2022, when a 20-ton booster from China's Long March 5B rocket crashed back to Earth uncontrollably, forcing Spain and France to close sections of their airspace. With over 2,300 abandoned rocket stages still orbiting the planet and 120 uncontrolled re-entries recorded last year alone, the threat is mounting. Compounding the problem is the explosive growth of satellite networks such as SpaceX Starlink, which plans to deploy tens of thousands of satellites. These will all eventually need to deorbit, raising concerns over uncontrolled re-entry risks. The convergence of expanding space operations and growing air traffic creates a perfect storm of risk that the industry cannot ignore. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The Indian rupee plunged to a fresh all-time low of 87.94 against the dollar as Trump's trade war is starting to reflect on emerging market currencies. The dollar surge on safe haven bets is hurting the rupee further, which is already the worst performing Asian currency this year. While the combination of wider rate disparity and broadening US tariffs, they all are now providing continued support to the dollar. Experts don't see that changing this week. The uncertainty about the nature, timing and magnitude of these Trump tariffs will support the dollar further. Investors expect tariffs to drive up inflation and further restrict the Federal Reserve's ability to ease monetary policy, and that's a big factor driving dollar bets. At the same time, major foreign portfolio outflows from Indian assets and the Reserve Bank of India's rate cut are likely to hit the Indian currency further. While the RBI is stepping in and supporting the currency, the central bank is also mindful of its foreign exchange reserves. The country's import cover has fallen majorly from a record of perhaps above $700 billion. The rupee has hit a series of record lows in recent months. Slowing economic growth and demand has hit the country's stocks and is not helping the currency either. The outlook remains bleak for the Indian currency. With little domestic boost left in the tank, the rupee looks to be at the mercy of global moves, especially those which are driving the dollar.